Host of Pod Save America and Love It or Leave It, John Lovett. Love it. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brian. He's YouTube's best boy.
He was going to get that in. What you don't know is that we recorded this multiple times to try to make him stop saying this. Love it. We are now in a moment where we have just seen how Donald Trump, obviously unhappy with the economic contraction, the only one in the industrialized world. The rest of the world is contending with economic growth. The U.S. is not. Has decided that this is still Joe Biden's economy, which makes this moment just a little bit awkward.
With all of the hysteria over tariffs, we know the jobs are being created, and it is much better than expected. At 177,000 jobs added to the economy in April, this proves Donald Trump's point that the economy is doing well.
So that was Maria Bartiromo applauding the fact that there were more than expected 177,000 jobs added this past month. So can you explain to me how it can both be Joe Biden's economy but also a big win for Donald Trump?
Well, you have to get pretty metaphysical. You also remember, so whose economy it is changes based on the news of the week.
Right, naturally.
When the economy was doing well under Joe Biden, Donald Trump called it Donald Trump's economy because people were already expecting him to become president. Then, when Donald Trump won, now he's saying this is because of me. It is my economy. Then, when the economy started sinking, it became Joe Biden's economy again. So it's basically when Joe Biden was president, it was Trump's economy. When Trump is president, it's Joe Biden's economy, except when the news is good.
Except when the news is good. Well, here's the interesting part, is that we did hear already some sprinkling of Trump coming in and saying that even if the economy continues to sour in the next quarter, that will still be Joe Biden's economy. So kind of already giving himself a permission structure to be able to diffuse responsibility onto Joe Biden. But as we know, the official definition of a recession is when we have 2 straight quarters of negative growth. And so if the economy now, before the tariffs even kicked in, was already negative 0.3%, now when the tariffs actually kick in, and we're already seeing the beginnings of that with the imports at the port of LA, where we are right now, seeing like a 36% decrease in the coming weeks. That number is only going to sink more and more. And so already he's trying to give himself some room to be able to say that the recession that we are inevitably careening toward doesn't belong to him.
And people are already not buying that. This is when Donald Trump gave his first joint address. He made some point about blaming Joe Biden for egg prices. I don't even remember the details. And I remember saying at the time, okay, buddy, you just got here. People are reasonable. You're not reasonable, and you wouldn't do the opposite, but we can still retain our reasonableness. And you're right. You've only been president a few weeks. You cannot be held responsible for every economic condition yet. It has now been months, and polling has come out, and it is showing not only is Donald Trump losing support on the economy, not only is he at his lowest ebb on the economy ever, first term, this term, as president, the American people hold him responsible for the economy, and he won't be able to talk people out of that. He wouldn't be able to talk people out of that if we weren't in the middle of the biggest self-inflicted economic crisis we've ever seen in our lifetimes. If we were seeing inflation, you could make some kind of argument where that is a long tail of policies that preceded Donald Trump being president. If we lived in a world where people had sincere and rational arguments about politics, we really don't. But that's not the world we're living in. The reason we are seeing declining tourism, the reason we are seeing declining trade, the reason we have seen trillions erased from the stock market is because of decisions made by Donald Trump based on a premise that froze in his brain the last time there was plasticity in there, which is roughly 1987. So and everybody knows that. In fact, he has done something extraordinary, which he has seemingly created a big national conversation and learning experience around the importance of fucking free trade. We're like, no, we have to have free trade. Like, all of a sudden the American people are like, yeah, no, we get it now. We get it now, which is wild. It's failing on its own terms, right? Because there are aspects of trade that Bernie Sanders, Sherrod Brown, a lot of mainstream Democrats would talk about as having had negative consequences that we need to address. There are ways in which trade with China is deeply unfair. You can't have free trade with a controlled economy. You can't. That is real. That is a reasonable critique. But my God, has he gone about it like the dumbest motherfucker on earth?
Right. Right. He basically burned any goodwill he might have had on this issue. And there are aspects of this, to your exact point, where he could have just done so with a scalpel and been smart about it, strategic about it, and actually had a really popular trade policy. But instead, just with a blunt hammer, assuming that either whether he's using it as a negotiating tactic or whether he's actually trying to reshore jobs that would take years to actually reshore. I mean, there's, the way that he opted to do this kind of just shot himself in the foot.
Yes, you could have perhaps united the United States, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Japan, our allies, in a great mission of trying to isolate China in some way by
didn't he basically do that by threatening to annex half of them?
Well, right. And then, but he's actually
technically they would all be united if we were one country,
But that is true. That's an important point. That's my bias. Those are my partisan blinders. But now it's like, now you see China and Japan working together. He's created unprecedented alliances against the United States.
Right. We're just not part of it.
There's an election in Canada. I have never felt I don't know if you're familiar with, I don't know if you're a history buff, Brian, but America's made a lot of mistakes in the world in the past. But I've never had the experience of watching a Canadian Prime Minister basically speak about America like the Americans will not break us.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck?
Like we're part of the axis of evil.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The interesting part of all of this is that right now Republicans are engaged in this practice where they are trying to convince Americans that gas is as cheap as it's ever been, food is as cheap as it's ever been, that the economy is gangbusters. And it's so interesting because we just came off of a presidency with Joe Biden where Democrats were accused of and largely guilty of doing the exact same thing, which is telling people how good the economic conditions were and trying to convince them to ignore the conditions that they themselves felt. And so it's just so interesting to see a party that not only didn't learn anything, but didn't learn anything from their own attacks. I mean, this was them exploiting the weaknesses of the Democrats that instantly fell into the exact same trap.
Yeah, and there was a debate about whether or not people were responding to economic conditions or media coverage of those conditions. And there's absolutely asymmetric polarization on how people view the economy.
Totally. I mean, we saw polling that showed the day after Trump got elected, everything like consumer confidence swapped.
Absolutely, but like that is true. But it is also true that Democrats are just a little bit less partisan on this than Republicans, right? Democrats give themselves a home team advantage. Republicans give themselves a home team advantage, but Republicans are just better partisans.
Yeah.
Right? They're more willing to tell a poster something that may not be true.
Totally.
But but that being said, the idea that it was media, that anger about the economy was a media creation, I think it's just been proven false just in the last few weeks. And Republicans will not be able to talk people out of their dissatisfaction with the economy, especially when Donald Trump ran to lower prices. He is pursuing policies that will increase prices. The only reason we might be in a situation where some things come down, like gas prices, is because he has wrecked the economy and people are driving less. That is I would call that a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah, right. I want to move on to a different topic here, and that is Donald Trump's confusion over the MS-13 tattoos on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's hand. So he has these random symbols on his hand. Anybody who has studied MS-13 has expressed just befuddlement at the idea that those are symbols that symbolize MS-13. What with the symbols symbolizing MS-13 just being giant MS-13s that they tattoo all over their body. Like, these are people who are very subtle about the imagery when it comes time to branding themselves.
Yes, people have the same kind of like online fucking Sherlock Holmeses are deciding these are gang tattoos with the same precision and rigor of people deciding that Taylor Swift is a lesbian based on clues inside of the lyrics.
Yeah, that's right.
That's sort of where we were at, but go on.
So a lot of these right-wing influencers and media folks had come out and basically attacked Democrats for suggesting that when Trump came out like a few weeks ago and he was like, oh, he has MS-13 tattooed on his hand, because he shared an image and it pointed to each thing. There was like a skull, there was a cross, a smiley face, and whatever.
A marijuana leaf.
And a marijuana
Beautiful,
leaf.
yeah.
And said, and there was the letters and numbers MS-13 above that pointing to it. And
someone had superimposed on the photo MS-13.
Correct.
Because you wouldn't know looking at the photo that they were suggesting it meant MS-13. So they say the marijuana leaf represents an M and the
skull is an S
and the cross is a 1.
Right.
Yeah. But it's not meant to confuse you.
It was just meant to point out what they think it would be interpreted as MS-13.
Right.
It turns out that that's exactly what Donald Trump thought it was. What was your reaction to seeing this news that Trump in fact did believe outright that this Arial font, like two-dimensional, much darker than the tattoos on his skin, off-centered letters and numbers were actually tattooed onto his hands?
I wanted to believe this was overinterpretation by media that hates him. Right, like, no, he can't be this stupid.
Bad. Right, yeah.
He can't be this wrong about it. In the same way that, it's not totally clear when Donald Trump says that he won 9-0 at the Supreme Court when he actually lost 9-0 at the Supreme Court. It's unclear whether he is genuinely unaware of the substance of the ruling or he is performing what he thinks is valuable based on what he's heard from Stephen Miller and all the rest. That he knows that the ruling is obviously calling on him to facilitate the release, but sticking with the part of it that is about him being in charge of foreign policy and calling that a win. You just can't tell, right? Is he misinformed or is he misinforming? We just never know with him. That's the fun. But this was so fucking stupid, and he really did insist that it said MS-13. It is the equivalent of going up to Meryl Streep and wondering where her Getty Images tattoo is. It is shocking. We have lost to the dumbest motherfuckers on earth, and that is a dispiriting aspect of our current predicament.
What does it say that somebody who has such piss poor judgment that he actually thinks that MS-13 superimposed onto an image with the resolution of Windows 99, of something that you would find in Microsoft Paint, right? What does it say that guy with that judgment is the one that's sitting across from people like Vladimir Putin negotiating on America's behalf? Might that be why our economy is crashing right now?
Well, it's like Donald Trump is a fraud and a menace, and we've known that. But it's a reminder that that's not what makes him dangerous. What makes him dangerous is he is surrounded by people that either see him genuinely as a leader they believe in, or they view him as valuable and worth getting behind for their own purposes, or they are afraid to get in cross purposes to him because of the command he has over a segment of the population that fucking loves him. The problem is the apparatus around him, right? Donald Trump is openly corrupt now. He is openly doing deals where foreign interests are coming out and saying, we've decided to do a $2 billion transaction in Trump's coin, right? From which he gets a cut, just directly, just
right.
lining his pocket. That is a huge crisis. That is a crisis. The president is openly corrupt, but it's not a crisis because he's the worst human being we've ever put in the job. It's a crisis because Republicans are enabling it every day. Donald Trump announcing tariffs is ridiculous. He did it in the dumbest policy executed in the dumbest way possible. That's the crisis. But it is only possible because Republicans refuse to take back the power that they have. They could end it tomorrow. They could call for him to stop profiting off the office tomorrow. They could pass legislation, anti-corruption legislation tomorrow. The problem is not that we put the worst human being in public life in the most powerful job in the world. It is that he is enabled by Republicans around him. That is that is where we have power. Those are the people we need to fight.
And I'm curious now because as we head toward 2026, obviously a lot of the responsibility, I think, as far as all of us are concerned, falls onto Donald Trump himself. But do you feel like the fact that Donald Trump isn't going to be running, at least for right now? I mean, do I think that he'll likely try to find a way to stick himself on the ballot or make himself J.D. Vance's VP and then swap whatever plan he and Steve Bannon have come up with? Yes, but that aside, do you think that the same responsibility for everything that's happening that falls on Trump is going to also fall on these Republicans as we head toward these election cycles? Do you think they'll carry the same weight of everything that he's doing, or do you think that they're largely going to get away with it because they can diffuse responsibility onto him?
I read a book by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is not what this channel is usually about, but I'll just tell you. And it is a story of a man filled with incredible regret because he got caught up in the fervor in Japan in World War II, in helping the government of Japan in its fascist enterprise to promote war, to stifle dissent, and then they lose. And this new generation looks at that older generation with disdain because of what they did to their country. Our job is to make them pay. Our job is to make them pay politically. Our job is to tell the story, the true story of this moment, even if it means that there is a sizable portion of the country that calls us fanatical or fantastical or hysterical or whatever they may say. The truth of this moment is the truth, right? Donald Trump today should be impeached and removed from office. That's the truth. And that may not be possible right now, but our job is to fight these people, knowing that they may be co-opted. The truth may be up for debate in this moment, but we will ultimately defeat these Republicans. We will ultimately remove Donald Trump, and history will tell the story of this disgraceful era. And all of these Republicans who spent their adult lives on every vacation reading fucking World War II books about Churchill and the people that stood up and American history of their great moments, and don't understand that they're failing now. I don't need them to get it. I don't need them to care. I don't need them to figure it out. We know what we have to do. We have to make them. We have to defeat them. And we have to never lose. Like, the great fear I had when Donald Trump won a second time was we were going to win some battles and lose some battles, but that when we came out at the end of those 4 years, we'd be living in a country that's unrecognizable. I think that's still very much a possibility, but it's not a certainty.
Yeah.
Right? Donald Trump right now, he is not a door that locked behind us yet. And we got to fight these people. We have to make them pay. We have to defeat Republicans in 2026. We have to make Donald Trump such a politically toxic entity that the idea of him pursuing a third term is ludicrous, not just because it is a violation of the Constitution, but because he has been so thoroughly rejected by the American people. That's our job.
That would normally be where I'd want to end, but I have to ask, because we're talking about somebody who is a self-styled marketing genius. This idea of renaming Veterans Day to Victory Day for World War I just rolls off the tongue.
I'm hearing about this for the first time. He wants to rename it Victory Day for World War I?
Yeah, marketing genius Donald Trump wants to rename Veterans Day to Victory Day for World War I.
What's wrong with Veterans Day?
Well, see, Trump didn't make that.
Oh. Well, when do we celebrate the victory of World War II?
That will probably be, well, I'm sure he'll find some holiday to, I'm sure
Wait, aren't there two? When do we celebrate? We mark the end of we mark VE Day, don't we? Or V Day? Or what? This is baffling. I'm hearing about this for the first time.
Yeah. Curious whether you think that this branding genius thought this one through.
Veterans Day is going to be Victory Day. Honestly, I don't have the energy to fight the naming of things. Let him call shit whatever he wants. I don't give a fuck. Okay, he's like, he got the Space Force. He'll get the Gulf of America. He'll get his Victory Day. I don't care. I just want to have a constitution when this whole thing wraps up.
All right, well, that seems like a good place to leave off. Love it. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. YouTube's best boy. Right there. There he is.